So last week we would have looked at the instruments of exchange. Could you remember any of them? Any of the instruments of exchange from last week? Excuse me.
The bill of exchange, letter, telebank, and that's what I remember.
Yes, so there were bills of exchange, electronic transfers, um, checks. We looked at money orders as well, and we looked at telebanking. Um, so yeah, so we'll be moving on to the others today. So remember that an instrument of exchange is anything that facilitates transactions and it enables the exchange of goods and services between the buyer and the seller. So the next one that we have here, excuse me, is a debit card. And these are also known as check cards or plastic cards. And this instrument of payment involves the reading of card details by a machine to transfer payments from the user's account to the person slash account they're paying. So if you go into a supermarket and you don't have cash and you want to use your debit card, what will happen is you will put it in a machine that is one is similar to this one right here, and the machine will read the information on the card, and you will a transaction would occur between from your account to the account of the supermarket. So the amount of money in the user's account affects the amount that the user can spend using their debit card. So you cannot, generally, you cannot necessarily spend what you don't have. However, as you can see here, some banks allow the user to spend a certain amount even if their account is empty, and that is called an overdraft. And that usually come with charges if you spend what you don't have in your account at the moment. So that was the debit card. And I just want to ask before I move on if you all can think of any advantages and disadvantages of the debit card. What are some advantages of using a debit card as opposed to cash? But we have here that it is an easy way to make payments. Oh, you were going to say something? Somebody was saying something. Credit this card. Oh, right. Right. So, and that is easy to make payments. All you have to do is type in some numbers, and the transaction occurs. It is safer than walking around with cash, and it allows users to withdraw from the ATM. So if you it's safer than walking around with cash, because if you're walking somewhere and you want to purchase some stuff that costs lots of money, it is not necessarily safe to walk around with all that money. So instead, it'd be better to walk around with debit cards, even credit cards sometimes. So yeah, so the disadvantages are that the money comes out almost instantly. So if the money is not in the account, it will become overdrawn and liable for fines. So they said the banks allow some banks allow you to, you know, withdraw what you don't have or spend sometimes what you don't have, and that's called an overdraft. However, their their fines or their charges attached to that. So then this is a one that we're probably most familiar with, coins and banknotes. And they're round metal or paper items that are used as a legal tender. So it is usually issued by the government and they have a standard size or weight. And they usually also the bills they usually have in like distinguishing features that will stop them from being like replicated. What do we call that term again? Where counterfeit money is so that persons can't produce counterfeit money. So like when you hold it up in the light, you may see some distinguishing marks, and that's how you can know that it is not counterfeit. Or it's most supermarkets have a machine where they scan like large bills, so like your $100 bills, your $50 bills, just to make sure that they are real money. And then the advantages include they're easy to use. You literally just have to hand the cashier. You need to count the money, hand the cashier how much it is, and she would make sure that it's the right amount. If it's more, she would give you back the remaining. If it's less, she would just ask you for more, and it is widely used. And you in most countries, money is generally accepted, even though you may have to purchase another country's um, dollar. For example, you can't spend the Barbadian dollar in US. You have to purchase US dollars or basically exchange US dollars and go over there and spend. And the disadvantages are forgery or counterfeit money is common, and the governments have to constantly find ways to prevent fake coins and fake and notes from circulating. So because it's paper and this is and it's coins and these things are easily made, they can easily be replicated. They can easily have counterfeit versions of these things, and the government always have to be they always have to put measures in place so that these counterfeit pieces of money do not remain in circulation. So next we have a credit card. And by any chance, do you know what's the difference between a debit and a credit card? Yeah. We want to welcome Sidel. We're looking at instruments of exchange, and we are credit cards. Just want to know if you all know the difference between a debit and a credit card. Well, basically, the credit card, you are spending money that you actually don't have. Like, this money is not in your account. You are technically borrowing money to make payments. So you're making payments on credit. The user is borrowing money from a finance house, and this finance house is usually owned by a bank, and they make they get the money is transferred to them to make a payment. The user pays for goods and services and pays for them at a later date. So you will have to pay back maybe monthly the amount due on your credit card, because you do not actually have this money. You're actually borrowing money from a financial institution, and you're going to be paying it back at a later date. So every month the user receives a statement showing how much they owe and that they must pay by a certain date. And if by the certain date you do not pay the bill in full, you will have to pay interest. So you would have to pay the amount that is owed on the card, and then you will have to pay extra, which would be the interest. The advantages are the users can borrow money before they actually have money themselves. So if you are low on funds or you didn't get paid for the month or something, you don't have money in your bank account at the moment, you can use a credit card to make payments. However, this can become a problem because if you don't have self control or you don't know how to like manage debt properly, you can end up in some serious problems because you can end up paying high rates of interest if you do not pay the charges in full. So you may be using your credit card to buy this and buy that and pay for this and pay for that, but you may be forgetting to pay the amount owed, and as a result, you will have to pay that along with high rates of interest. Is everything clear so far? I am taking your silence for as a yes, so I am moving on. All right, so the next instrument of exchange is a bank draft. And this is an instrument of payment that carries a guarantee of funds from your financial institution. It is basically a check made out by a bank on behalf of a customer to allow the customer to make a substantial payment. For example, when buying a house or car. It acts as a means of payment for expensive items where the seller does not personally know the credit status of the buyer. So when you want to make big purchases where you have to use a lot of money, sometimes it's best to use a bank draft. The bank will break this up for you, and you would give it to the seller, and it is a guaranteed form of payment. So the seller is guaranteed that the money will be paid to them. They don't have to worry about if you're in lots of debt or anything like that, because it's coming from the bank. So that is basically what a bank draft is. There are advantages, and the person receiving the bank draft, so that's the person that the seller, the person that's going to receive the money in the end, feels reassured that the payment will be made because we understand that it's a guaranteed um, method of payment. And then the disadvantages include that the bank drafts could be lost or stolen because it's a literal piece of paper, and they can be also expensive to set up if they're frequently used. So there are charges associated with um, using bank drafts. The next instrument of exchange um, is a is telegraphic money transfer, and this is also known as wire transfer. And the money is basically transferred from one account in one country to an account in another country. So the customer would normally go into their bank or post office to make this payment. So this sounds similar to like um, a money order, what we would have done not last week, week before, but instead of like writing up a paper and send it to the post office, etc., you pay the money and you and then the bank just transfers it via um, maybe electronic transfers or um, yeah, they send it probably through the internet or what's not. So you're just transferring money from one account in one country to another in another country. So when the bank is sending this money, they would need the name of the account to be paid to, the bank account number of the recipient, the bank code number of the recipient, the address of the recipient, and the amount to be paid. So these are the details that the bank, let's say the bank that you are using, that they will need if you're sending money to somebody overseas. The advantages is that it's a safe way to transfer money, and the disadvantage is it can be used to facilitate money laundering. So that is the disadvantage. The next instrument of exchange is a treasury bill, and these are used when the government or a corporate institution wants to raise money by issuing bonds. So the government may want to work on a project, or an institution may want to work on a project, and they may issue bonds. And basically what happens is that usually the public or um, the people in the institution, are it's usually the public though, they um, are the ones lending the government the money. So every month you will have to pay the government money or lend the government money, and then after the date that is set that the government decides to pay you back, you will get back your money along with interest. So it's basically used to facilitate the transaction of bonds. Um, right, the investor, so which is the entity which loans the government or the corporate institution the money, receives this treasury bill from the government. So our customer or investor pays in a certain amount of money, and after a set time, they receive their money back plus a percentage of interest. The advantages are the investments are backed by treasury, so there's less chance of their value falling. However, they can fall, and you may put in, let's say, altogether $4,000, but because of inflation, the value of the dollar can drop, and you will be receiving less money than you have put in. The last one, or the second last one, sorry, is bank transfer, and this is very, very similar to the telegraphic transfer. I don't know where the syllabus has it as two separate things, but it's a way to send funds from one bank account to another anywhere in the world. And this, as you can see here, is very similar to the telegraphic money order. And the advantages include they enables fast movement of money in a safe way, and the receiver that's supposed to be quick, has quick access to the payment. And the disadvantages are there can be hidden charges, especially when sending large amount money, sending money to international accounts. So this process of transferring money from one account from one country to the next um, has charges associated with it. The last one that we'll be looking at today will be the instrument money or mobile wallets. And these refer to the use of cell phones to make payments or transfer money electronically. So do you all know of any of them? Any money transferring apps?
Um, no, I don't know any of them.
Okay. Well, I think here in Barbados, there's one called M-Money, and you will hear in the United States and stuff. You will hear about something called Cash App, and you will hear like Cash App me this amount of money, or I could Cash App you this amount of money, and yeah, that's basically what it is. So you can make payments or you can transfer money electronically. So it's becoming more popular because most people carry their cell phones in their hands, and it's basically a quick way to transfer funds. So you don't necessarily have to go to the bank, stand in the line, and wait for the teller to give you money, and then send it to the post office. You don't have to go through that long process. You can literally just use your phone, go on an app, transfer money to whoever. A mobile wallet is a system that uses a cell phone as a way of making payment, and the payer texts a message to their provider using a code, and this code is then validated, and it enables the user to make a payment directly from their cell phone. And that's basically it. So I have some, or the advantages are they're easy to use anywhere with a phone or internet access, and the disadvantage is hacking can become an issue.